Holy Spirit. Hello everybody, my name is Dennis Coad. Right now I'm living in Clever, Missouri, not far from Springfield, Missouri. Born and raised in Cherry Valley, Arkansas. It's about 35 miles before you get to Memphis, before you get to Mississippi River, like close to Jonesboro, Arkansas, Wynne, Arkansas. I'd like to give you all my testimony, or more likely it's a little bit of my life story. Because my testimony started when I was a kid, when I was young. Some people's testimony start much older, but mine started years and years ago. And now that I can look back now, and I can see kind of how it all went wrong, but when you're a kid, you cannot see this. First of all, like I say, this is my testimony. This is how I see it. This is not how probably my brothers and sisters see it. Of course, some of them see it that way, but not all going to agree. Because I did come from a very dysfunctional family. A few of us have got out of that dysfunctional family, but still to this day, 80% I'd say is still dysfunctional. And you might ask, I know I have, what makes a dysfunctional family? How does a dysfunctional family even get started? Well, now that I'm a Christian, I can look back and I can give my opinion, and I can line things up with the Bible, and I know how it happened. Our family was not raised up by the Bible. We was not raised up with anything that had to do with faith, with anything that had to do with love. To this day, of course, my dad, he died about 4 years ago. Up until that time, he never told me he loved me. He never hugged me. Never played ball with me. Never did nothing with me. So just let me say in my testimony, I'm not griping or I'm not complaining. I'm here to tell you how it happened and how it affected my life. I'm not blaming my family. I'm not blaming my brothers and sisters, my mom and dad. I'm not blaming nobody. I was not taught, and they was not taught, and maybe my grandmother wasn't even taught. My mother, she raised us up by daytime TV, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives. So there was a lot of condemning in my house, finger pointing, a lot of lies. And my dad worked 12 hours a day, so my mother ran the household. And he worked 7 days a week. And that's just kind of how that happened. So, there you have it. Family not raised up the Bible. Chaos comes. Dysfunctional. Finger pointing. Not everybody blaming each other. I was searching for love. I was searching for a male image in my life. I needed a male image. I needed someone to teach me the things I needed to teach. The brother that I looked up to in life, he went to the Army. He went to Vietnam. He came back with Agent Orange, and he died of cancer. And that was the one I looked up to, and that was the one I could talk to. He was a Christian. And I had another brother that was a Christian. Almost an older brother, not quite the older brother. And he'd come along, and he would give me some wisdom, and he would talk to me. But I never remember nobody really talking about Jesus. I was maybe too young at that time. I mean, maybe that's what they think. But no, I see kids nowadays. I mean, I pray for kids at 7 years old and I see things happen. So then all of a sudden, I had 3 brothers leave home. Military, Air Force, Army. 2 of them went to Army and 1 went to Air Force. And that just left me one sister, and one brother. Before that time, I was doing pretty good at the house because we had so many kids. We had a 2-bedroom house. 3 boys slept in one bed. I mean, it was kind of chaos. I mean, we all just kind of piled up and slept in that small house. And at that time, I didn't know no difference. I didn't know we was poor, and maybe we wasn't poor. I know we was poor in heart. I do know that. I was poor in my soul. So I started looking for them male images. I started hanging around with older guys, mainly because I knew when my dad was going to come home, I just didn't want to face him. You know, it's hard. I don't know if anybody can relate to this. It's hard living in the house with your dad when he communicates with other kids, but he won't communicate with you. When I go outside and play ball with one brother, but he won't play ball with you. So as I say, to this day, Dad never told me he loved me. He never hugged me. He never did nothing with me. But right before he died, he did say he loved me and he was proud of me. You know, it didn't mean that much then. It really didn't mean that much at all. I have a sister now. She understands how I feel. Well, I don't know if she understands it. She's seen it. It was the opposite with her. Dad gave her all the attention and gave me none. And she saw that then. And now we talk about that. And to this day, she don't know. I even asked my mother. I said, you know, why did Dad treat me like that? Why didn't he ever love me or show any affection? She said she wasn't going to tell me. This was 4 years ago. So about the age of 12. Started running around with the older boys, and they would get me to go to this liquor store, a little one-room liquor store, drive-up liquor store. They would get his attention. He was old, probably about 90. Seemed like at that time he was about 120, but he was old now. Thick glasses, like Coke bottles. They'd get his attention and talk to him, distract him, and I'd kind of slide behind the counter there and start putting bottles of whiskey down in my pants, and then I'd sneak out the back way. And we'd go down the creek and we'd drink that whiskey. When we didn't have whiskey, we'd go buy some gasoline. At that time it was 25 cents a gallon for gasoline. Whoa. 25 cents a pack of cigarettes back in them days. There's another store that we'd go to, and I'd start stealing cigarettes and cigars and things we needed from that store. At that time, I got a thrill from stealing. And I noticed I got attention by stealing. The other boys hip parade me when I'd go steal. And things started turning worse then. They told me if I was going to be part of their gang, be able to run around with them, that I was going to have to give them oral sex. I think it was about 3 boys. This didn't happen long, maybe a week, maybe a half a week. And to tell the truth, I really don't know. But my heart was really convicted at that time, and I wasn't saved. You know, I didn't even know Jesus. I just knew what I was doing was wrong. But they kept telling me it ain't wrong. So what did the boys do? They went to school, they went to town, told everybody what I did, called me a queer, called me this, called me that. They ruined my name in town, in that small little town in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, which was about 520 something people at that time. I mean, I'd go to school and people would call me queer, they would call me this, they'd laugh at me. It just made me feel bad. I guess someone told my dad too, because things really went bad at home after that. Really went bad. And I couldn't take it no more. I just couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand going home. I mean, that's bad. At 12 years old, you cannot stand to go home. When there was no love, there was no understanding there. So I went out in the creek bank, almost a mile from the house. And I dug me a hole 5 foot deep, 5 foot wide, and about 5 foot tall. I mean, I could stand up in it. I mean, I was short at 12 years old, so. And that, there was cane out there, you know, cane like making fishing rods with, them kind of cane, you know, about 3/4 inch thick. So I got all them cane and everything, and I started weaving them like a basket. And I made my roof out of that. Then on top of that, I'd put all these leaves and everything on it. I mean, you couldn't even see this thing. I had one hole that you could get into it with, and I had it covered up with a log or something where you couldn't even see that it was there. I mean, it was super cool. Right on the creek bank. The one wall was actually facing the creek that I did out of bamboo out of that, and you couldn't tell. You could walk right beside it. I had boys coming down there looking for me. They're either going to whoop me or do something. I mean, it was bad then. And they couldn't even find it. I stayed there, I don't tell how long. I would come home after my dad would come home, and he ended up going to sleep. Then I'd come home and crawl in bed. And things were so bad at the house, I just couldn't stand it. So that's pretty much where I stayed. In the woods. I had nobody to talk to. Come to find out, I started collecting bones, and I'd put these bones together. Them was my friends. I'd have bones, and I'd try to make little animals, my own animals, out of these bones. I mean, you know, I think about this today. That was not good, but that was better than going to a dysfunctional family. So this went on for a good while. Good while. I done got ridiculed at school. I couldn't stand it no more, but I had to go to school at that age. I played hooky as much as I could. Back in them days, you could get away with playing hooky pretty much. I mean, that was not hard to do. Back in, I guess that was in the 60s. Yeah, back in the 60s. So I think at the age of 13, you know, I was telling you I was selling whiskey and everything. I got me 2 pints of Seagram 7 whiskey. We went out in the country, and there's a cabin out there, some boys, and now we broke into that cabin because it's winter time, November, cold. Don't get as cold as it does here. And they dared me to drink them 2 pints, to kill them, just to turn them up and kill them. Man, that's what I did. And as soon as I did that, that whiskey hit me so hard. I mean, it's just, I had no control over my body. I had no control over myself. Had to use the bathroom. That didn't work. I tried to walk. That didn't work. They couldn't do nothing with me. 3 boys. They got scared, and they left me out there in the woods, in that cabin in the wintertime, outside, and just left me, abandoned me. Somehow, I guess I crawled or rode or walked or a little ways away from that cabin to a road, and then I fell in the road ditch, and the road ditch was kind of iced over. Didn't have much water in it. It was no more 6 inches of water, but I fell in that water. And when she found me, this lady found me, a school member. She was 2 years older than I was. She found me. She saved my life. When I finally got to the hospital, if I understand it, I ain't for sure, but they pronounced me dead on arrival. They gave me the shock treatment, they pumped me, and got me back breathing again. I don't know if I didn't go home right then, but then when I did go home, it was out in school that I died. You know, I thought that was kind of exciting. You know, I think I was 13, 14. I really don't know. It was after all of this molestation period went and all of that. And I stayed messed up for a whole week after that. I mean, that really dramatized me. I thought, but not really. It wasn't long before I was back out there doing it again. So one of the boys I started running around with, about 14, that's from another town. They didn't know my past. They didn't know what these other boys did. They did not know. So I started running around with them because I done got a little older, 14, he was 16. So we started drinking, smoking pot, smoking cigarettes, driving crazy on the road, stealing, whatever we could do. But he went to church. He went to a Baptist church in the town of Vandale, Arkansas. And he got saved. He changed his life. He started telling me about this. He said, why don't you just come to church? Why don't you just come and see? So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. It's testimony night. He got up and gave his testimony. I knew his testimony. But when I was sitting out there and hearing his testimony come from his mouth, something changed me. Something happened. The altar call came. I just kind of floated up there. Gave my life to Jesus. Started singing different songs. We started getting little youth groups together. We'd meet in the country. We'd meet in different places. Sing that song Kumbaya, and we had a good time. We had a good time back in them days. But that didn't last long at all. So the church I was going to, the preacher and the pianist, which is both married to, they stole the money from the church, and they left state. And I said, man, is this what it's all about? Is this really it? The first time I ever heard anything about God and about Jesus, and the preacher that was preaching this and teaching me, he left with the pianist and took the money. Of course, back in them days, there was no discipleship. No one discipled nothing. That's why I know discipleship is so important now. And the reason I say that, okay, let's say discipleship. Let's say you get a job welding. You don't know nothing about welding. They take you to the factory, show you where you're going to be working at and where you're going to be welding, and then they leave you alone. What are you going to do? You don't know what to do. I mean, you can sit there for weeks. You still don't know nothing. That's discipleship. Someone's going to have to teach that person how to do the job. Discipleship, when it comes to Jesus Christ, someone needs to be there to teach them about Jesus. Well, I'm kind of getting off ahead. I got that to the end of it. So I went back out. This Jesus thing didn't work for me. People told me he really didn't love me. Satan jumped on me. So I started running around stealing again, drinking. Now I'm getting into more drugs. I'm getting into more drastic things. And things just got way out of hand. Way out of hand real fast. I quit school because still I was getting ridiculed at school for what I did 4 years before this. I was about 16 now, 17. I quit school in the 10th grade. I said, I got to get out of this town. I really did. I have to get out of this town. I lived there from 12 to about 17, and it was a pure hell. Pure hell at home, pure hell at town, and it was pure hell in school. This boy could not take it no more. I had to get out, and I did. I moved to Memphis, Tennessee. Whoa, was that not a change for a 17-year-old country boy? Man, I got there, and I just went plumb crazy. Robbing, stealing, got into speed, got into heroin, got a job working at a bar, a restaurant, that served alcohol. It was called the Looking Glass. I did not need that job. I could have got any job would have been better for me than that job. I mean, I got way out of hand. Matter of fact, I lived in this old woman's apartment building that she done quit renting it out to people. But she still had electricity on in the place, and it still worked as if nobody lived there. I sneaked around back and went in there and made me made home right there. I started living in that apartment building. I lived there for a year, scot-free, no rent. She didn't even know I was there. She seen me every now and then, and I just said she was senile. I said, hey, I'm just looking for somebody, and that was it. But anyway, finally she died, and brothers came, and I had to go. I was stealing all my food from that restaurant. I was stealing all the whiskey that I wanted from that restaurant. I'd put it in garbage bag because that was my job, emptying the garbage. I'd put everything in a trash bag, and then I'd take it out and put it in a trash dumpster. Then I'd come back and get it. Now, I'm telling you all this. Now, I'm not bragging. I am not bragging about what I did. I feel bad about everything that I have done. I wished I hadn't have done that. I wished I would have had a father that taught me about the things that I needed to learn on. I wish there was God in my life. I wish the family was taught by the Bible.